We're live.
All right.
Howdy, folks. We're on the internet talking about things.
How do I find myself
How do you find
on?
yourself on YouTube? I think you have to go under the live tab. This is like remedial streaming
Oh
here,
yeah.
folks. This is the behind the curtain, breaking the fourth wall here. But yeah, I think there's like a video section and then there's a live section. That's happened to me before. I'm not sure if that's what's going on.
Oh, live now. Look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
There it is.
yeah. And if you do it vertically, they'll put it under shorts, which is even more confusing.
Okay.
Don't use vertical video.
Don't use vertical video.
All right. Well, it's been a minute. What have you been up to?
Okay. It
Yeah.
has been. Go ahead. What's it been?
It feels like a month.
It has been at least a month. Let's see what's happened. Let me make this screen go away. Nope. I made that screen go away. Well, let's see what's happened. There was an event for me. There was Devops Days Seattle,
Right? How'd that go?
and that was great. That was great. A lot of work because there's whenever you do an MC kind of gig, you've got to really pay attention to the session so that you can be able to link that previous session to the next session.
Right.
And then even this time there was one speaker who, in their bio, made it very clear the company that they work for.
Okay.
And apparently the week before the event, her employer said, "Don't tell them where you work." It's like, it's already known. And I was like, you shouldn't do that. And so I had this description of this person, and it talked about where she works.
Right.
And so I had to change the introduction. 20 seconds of reading, 30 seconds of reading this bio. I had to change all that on the fly to be something about, basically somebody asked a question to me personally just before that, saying
Right.
this DevOps days, it's titled wrong. This has nothing to do with DevOps.
Interesting.
This DevOps, all the talks should be about CI/CD and about the tools rather
Oh,
than the culture.
I love
This
it.
culture
Kind of like-
stuff,
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
culture stuff that I didn't come here for this. I came here for the DevOps stuff.
Right.
And so I was able to talk about DevOps days being more than just the tools. It is about the culture,
Right.
and that's a core part of DevOps days, all the events, because we want to make sure that we are healthy employees and healthy workers and don't burn out. And
Absolutely.
whether you're an individual contributor or a manager, and this person happened to be a manager, talking about
Yep.
what they had learned about being a manager and what they wish they knew about being a manager.
Right.
And so I was able to twist, rather than say where she worked, I could really go into, and I think it was a better introduction, rather than a personal story about me and that company.
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly been there before, where I personally went to like a DevOps days and assumed we were going to be talking about, and maybe not CI/CD. I think that's something that's
Yeah,
rather new. When we talk about DevOps, it seems to be associated with like Git or what have you. But
yeah,
I definitely thought it was going to be really technical and about
yeah,
code and stuff like
yeah,
that. And maybe when you go to a conference and you're bringing other people from your team to it, that maybe that's what you're expecting in terms of value.
yeah,
But I also feel like it's almost like a maturity kind of thing. Like as your tenures increase at different companies or what have you, or
hmm
community, you realize that these soft skills are more and more important.
yeah,
But also, like if you haven't come across like columns or cams, it's a
yeah,
good time to explain like why
yeah,
the first letter is C.
yeah, yeah,
For the listeners, that's culture, automation, measurement, and sharing. And the comms version would have L for lean. But yeah,
yeah,
I definitely believe in that
yeah,
definition of DevOps
yeah,
rather than it's just tooling.
yeah.
That is great. Good opportunity
Yeah.
and
So
good
yeah,
way
that
to
was fun.
take advantage of it. Yeah.
And that was definitely a more positive. That week ended in a much more positive way.
Right.
It started in a very negative way.
Right.
So, well, so before the event, we experienced a very stressful situation personally,
Oh,
our family.
okay.
So I didn't I haven't really shared it, and it's weird that I'm sharing it in a more public way for all
Like you
two
need to,
users.
but hopefully everybody's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, all two viewers of this program. Um, Mom, yeah, I guess your mother's watching, right?
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, the weekend before DevOps days, we went into downtown Seattle. We live, just across from Seattle,
Right.
and uh, my wife is with her niece who has been staying with us, and they go shopping inside a Pike Place Market. And
Right.
so it's me and Stella, our daughter. Stella's in the stroller, and I'm pushing her along. And we cross the street right at Pike Place Market. Busy
Mhm.
area, lots of
Very
tourists
good.
everywhere. And the other side of the sidewalk, there's this woman who's screaming about something, and
Okay.
she sees us, and she sees Stella, and
Hmm.
she does this, boom,
No way.
a punch.
Wow.
So it managed. Luckily, she is not experienced at hitting kids because she missed. She kind of just really did a more of a slap to the forehead. So
Right.
she didn't really have all the force of her arm. She looked like she did. She looked like she was going to really
Wow.
do some damage. Managed to barely slap her in the forehead, but it was traumatic, and she's screaming. Stella is. I don't know about the woman. The woman's
Right.
screaming still, and she bolts. She's down the road. I'm holding Stella, trying to console her, trying to she's totally screaming,
I can't believe that.
and I'm holding her, but all these people around me come over, say, "How can we help? What do you need? How?" And I'm like, I don't know how you could. I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, you just
I and I'm after. It felt like a long time, but it was probably just a few seconds. I pull her back to be able to look and make sure all the parts are in the right spot.
just quick.
And I see she's okay. So I'm holding her. She's still upset, still screaming,
Right.
obviously. And I pull out my phone, dial 911, connected with 911 dispatch
Mhm.
almost immediately. Explain the situation. Where are you? We're on, I don't know, the Western and something, right across
Right.
the street from the old Eddas, and so they know exactly where I am. And does your daughter need medical attention right away? So I don't think so,
Right.
but everything looks fine. And within, oh, and then the woman is long since gone. I don't know where she went. But then this guy from Iron and Oak Security comes up to me, and apparently downtown Seattle has hired a couple of different security firms to like just wander the streets, and they
Interesting.
happened to be right there, and they chased her, and they got her, and they held on to her until the police could come.
Wow.
And so this guy comes over and tells me what's happened with them, and they so I'm on with 911, and within maybe 2 minutes of hanging up, two police cars arrived. By the time we were leaving, much later, after a bunch of other things happened, there were probably about seven Seattle Police Department and two Seattle Fire Department cars and trucks there helping us. And so it was an amazing response.
That's awesome.
And but but police pinned her down, and but while trying to control her, she managed to get two more punches off to the police.
Oh no,
So she's yeah,
never.
that's not a good thing. And still screaming.
I mean,
And then
pretty bad
even
mental. They're trying to
yeah,
hit a child. Right?
even there was even one of there's an area right there where she was being held, where there's a number of homeless that like to just sit there for I don't know, sit there for the day. And um, one of them came up and says, "I'm so sorry this happened. This is." Hopefully you don't think badly of Seattle, because I mean she was like representing Seattle. It was in a positive way, and I
mean,
definitely
like, so they probably assumed you're a tourist or something, right?
yeah. But it took a while to go through everything. But then one of the policemen brought over a little teddy bear for Stella,
Aw.
and like stickers that say honorary special detective and special fireman from the fire department. And she was just excited that all these people are paying attention to her. It's like, oh, here's this teddy bear. Here's this. What's the fire department? Each of the guys has this big, or one of the guys had this big case filled with all the band-aids and bandages and first response kind of stuff. And she's like, "What's that do? What's that? Ooh, what's that?" And started pulling out different toys out of there and testing their temperature. And so she was having a blast. But after that whole event and we left, we're members at the art museum, so we go inside just because it's nice and quiet,
Right.
and cool, and because it's also pretty hot outside. So we go in. Tony and Michaela walked into the exhibit with Stella, and I just needed to find a dark spot to sit down. And I just sat there just trying to process what had just happened.
Yeah.
But it's been a few weeks now. And I hear every now and then from the city attorney's office and the police department about what's happening to that person. And
Right.
so, so that was the beginning. That was probably the weekend after we last spoke.
Right.
So
Hopefully this person's getting help,
stress.
and hopefully your dog is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Stella is totally fine. She's there's no. The first few days she would ask, "Why did that woman hit me?"
Right. Yeah. Pretty good question.
I don't know. But we haven't heard any more about that. And sleep is back to normal, back to hard normal.
Right.
Because she's 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a awful thing. And
Yeah.
it took a long time. I'm almost glad that I had Devops days to focus on, because every time I closed my eyes, I would see not her face. I don't think I ever really noticed her face, but seeing her do that swipe down just over and over and over again. It was.
Yeah, I hear you. It's good. Sometimes I know it's bad to say, but it's sometimes good to have work to be able to put your stuff into, or like a project to focus all your attention on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes you do just need some time to process things properly, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then I guess the one other thing that's happened since then is I went rafting down the Salmon River.
Wow. Now there are a lot of salmon rivers. Is it called the Salmon River?
The Salmon River, which connects up to the Snake River in Idaho. So
which
kind of.
I wonder.
Huh?
Salmon River sounds a lot more enjoyable than the Snake River.
Yeah, well, the Snake River is a lot wider. Also, the Salmon River is the longest stretch in the U.S. Without dams.
Interesting.
So there are no dams on the Salmon River. So it is just the natural way water flows down a river, and all the other rivers in the U.S., they have dams on them, and so they're
Wow.
affected by when power levels go, or power needs go up, the
Right.
water level changes on the river.
Right.
I guess it goes up because more water is flowing through the dam to spin the turbines.
Right.
So, and in fact, when we got onto the Snake River, that we noticed that, and the water level from when we camped at 5 o'clock in the evening versus the water level at 7 in the morning when we woke up was probably 10 feet higher than it was. It's enormous change.
Now, I'm not a technoevangelist stream expert here or anything, but I've certainly seen at least one other rafting video on your YouTube channel. Have you done this a few times
This was
before?
the second. This was the second trip we did. The Grand Canyon.
Yeah, that was amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
So some people go rafting and have the experience where they, fall out of the raft or whatever, and they tell me never again, don't ever do it. Others love it. Which camp are you in?
Oh, absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Even though, and even Tony loved. She didn't go on this trip. She went on the Grand Canyon one,
Right.
and she broke her ankle on the first day.
Wow.
And she still loved it, and she still wants to go again. She couldn't.
That's awesome.
This time, but it's incredible. And this particular trip, the Salmon River, at this particular time, August, late July, early August, and this particular company, Hell's Canyon Rafting. That combination was it's perfect. It's such an easy, you get a little bit of rapids, but nothing too violent. Not like, the Grand Canyon has the lava something on the Grand Canyon is like one of the most violent set of rapids that you can actually go down in the world. It's in the top 10 or something of, there's this massive drop at the beginning and a massive, you're shooting up after that. And I mean, people can die or at least get seriously injured on these rapids. There's none of that on the Salmon.
But that's good to hear.
Unless you go at certain times of the year.
Gotcha. And is this something where you could take kids with? Is it that calm, or is it?
So there was a 5-year-old on this trip.
Okay.
And he had a great time.
Interesting.
He kind of burned out at one point, but for the most part, apart from that one evening, it seemed to have a blast the whole time. So
that's really cool. I've never been rafting.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get up to much. I took some photos. I ended up getting the sickness that we won't mention on YouTube. And what I found interesting about that whole experience is that I felt really dumb. And I'm not the smartest person, but I had a really hard time watching what's it called, Kyrgyzstan, for example, on YouTube. So I knew there was something wrong because that channel is pretty easy. It's one of those explainer kind of YouTube channels.
Oh yeah.
About science and things like that. And I'm having a really hard time. Also noticed that bringing up words that I'm used to being able to just grab from the vocabulary is becoming a little bit more difficult. Some of this is age, obviously.
Oh really?
But otherwise, I'm noticing that there's a steep drop off, and I'm slowly building things back up. But it's kind of interesting. Makes things like work really difficult. I found a problem where I was working in the wrong folder, for example, and something wasn't working. Luckily, I was in a folder. But just some of these things about work that you realize you have to be on point all the time when you're dealing with code, and when you're not. Bad things happen. And it's who did this? Were they drinking? That kind of thing is I don't know. Last week I wasn't feeling so well. So some of that, I feel like, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that even though you might not be symptomatic, it's probably good to take an extra couple of days to pad, especially when you're dealing with stuff that might be in prod or what have you. So there was a little bit of relearning old lessons. It was hey, be self-aware, understand where you are in the situation, and think about your coworkers and impacts and stuff like that. And I'm not saying I threw caution to the wind, but I just didn't do that self-check and didn't realize I was mentally Understand these YouTube videos. What makes you think that you can do work over here, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few weeks before DevOps days, I got really sick. It was not that thing. It was just a flu, but a really bad case of the flu. And I also, it was one of the first times that Tony has ever seen me like able to pick up my laptop, like physically able because it's right there in front of me, but unable to do it because I'm just so tired and so unable to think straight. And so it wasn't that, but it was a kind of flu that I've never experienced, where I was just, it was such a painful throat and such a horrible sneeze and runny nose and everything. And but I was negative the whole time, but
Yeah,
thankfully,
I mean, we're getting into fall now too, so there's like seasonal flus going around. Who knows what kind of mutations are happening or what have you. And also there's talk about like testing not being necessarily accurate for different strains and stuff. But I mean, again, like knowing your limits, knowing that kind of stuff. So when this happened, like, did you take some time off work? What did you do? Because it's
I was off for a week.
Yeah. When you're in a startup, I feel like you feel like Atlas, right? You're holding up the whole world on your own, but like, you have to be self-aware, which can be tough.
Yeah, it was kind of awkward because I got sick, so I was down for a full week. I was out. I was not working at all.
Right.
And then I was back, and then I had DevOps days, and so I'm out for a week.
Right.
And then I'm back, and then I had this rafting trip that I had scheduled months and months and months ago before I even started working here.
Right.
And I'm off for a week, and now I'm back.
Did you feel been this? You're getting at?
Like, I feel really bad, and the founders of the company, don't worry, we're in it for the long haul.
Right.
We understand. Don't get sick again.
Some of this is also summer. I've noticed that a lot of people will. There's just a lot going on, especially when you have kids and you're out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to be sort of back to that culture and camp stuff. It's hard to be hard on other people. The problem is that you don't. Like when it comes to yourself, often like the different rules will apply to you than they do to others, or at least for me. Like I'll apply like a different set of rules to myself than I do for others. And like, that's okay. They're sick. They can take some rest, but like, I have to get this done. You know what I mean? Like it's, this is like some mental gymnastics going on here where somehow the rule doesn't fit yourself as well. But yeah, that self-awareness is hard. It's something that I struggle with.
Yeah. Wow.
Other than that,
and I guess the result of all these sicknesses and events and vacations is that we haven't been here we haven't done this. We're out of practice of doing this.
Indeed. The only other thing that came up for me is I've had some issues with my heel. It's not a big deal, but like when I walk around a lot at conferences and stuff like that, I've noticed there's something wrong. It just doesn't feel right, kind of thing. It turns out that I've injured my tendon where it hits the heel. But what I thought was really interesting, when I went to the podiatrist to talk to them about what was going on, they give me a prescription for New Balance. So I've now got dad shoes for the first time in my life. I'm wearing them right now inside the house because they recommend it, but they're big foam pieces under my feet, and it feels like a dream because for most of my career I've been wearing like minimal shoes, and I thought the idea was to strengthen your feet. And the podiatrist said like, that's a great idea, but it's like 10 years old. Like 10 years ago that was a popular thinking. Like you should have come here sooner. Luckily you didn't permanently damage anything, but like definitely.
So where was it? What was damaged?
So right on the back of your heel where the Achilles tendon attaches to your heel is where it damaged it.
So right down on the heel part.
Right where it rubs up against the shoe. And he picked up my shoe and looked at it and was like, sure enough, it's worn out right here. I knew it was going to be, but right here, you didn't even know. I'm like, no. And he asked me how old my shoes were. I told him, I think they might have been 2 to 3 years old. And he said, oh yeah, you need a new pair of shoes. And maybe I hang on to my shoes a little bit longer than I should, trying to get some extra knowledge out of them. But he said, don't do that. These are your feet. You're on them all the time. I was expecting him to say like, lose some weight, get in shape, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now came up.
No. Wow.
Like obviously, I'm trying to do the whole couch to 5K thing, and so far,
Oh, okay.
walking is how I'm starting. But I've noticed like it's hurting a little bit. What's
Yeah.
going on here? And yeah, so now I'm
So
wearing
if you
shoes,
go from the heel, I
right?
don't know what this is supposed to be. So your foot's here, and you kind
Yep,
of climb up the back of your leg to
yep,
where, I don't know if it's the tibia and the fibia link
right.
up. That is the piece that broke for my wife on the first day of the Grand
Oh,
Canyon trip.
that sounds awful. And you were so you had to camp and things like that too the whole time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What a trooper! And
I,
she still
I
go back.
the pain that she must have experienced. I, I, I'm sure I would have said Medevac now. Medevac,
Yeah,
50,000. Fine, whatever.
exactly. All the
Medevac, get me out of here.
so as a Canadian, I would be like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. We can't afford any type of US kind of
Yeah,
hospital stuff. So it's always like a gamble whenever we go on a
yeah,
trip is to just make sure nothing like that happens. So
right.
rafting for me is like if there's any possibility of injury, it's
Yeah,
something I do in Canada. And again, this isn't like a healthcare thing or anything like that. It's more like a
yeah,
caution thing. And then I'm older, and then
yep.
I don't think I've broken a bone in my body other than my nose when I was little, but like other than that, like nothing. So I just know the
Yeah,
clock's ticking, right? Like it
yeah,
seems to me that it's bound to happen at this point in time as I get older. So I try to be
right.
cautious.
Which is the reason why I own a electric skateboard, but have never ridden the electric skateboard. Because in my mind, I am 20, and yet
Right.
I also realize I'm not 20.
It's so true. Getting back to the rafting stuff. So like, I don't want to call us content creators, but as people who like to record things and stuff like that,
Hmm.
did you bring a GoPro this year or a
I did.
camera?
I did. I brought a. I didn't. I wasn't as prolific, or with recording it as I
Right.
was for the Grand Canyon. Just I. I mean the rapids are fun to go down, but they're not spectacular. So I didn't record a lot of those. Because
Right.
one thing that I found when using a GoPro, I remember going to when I lived in Europe, I went skiing or snowboarding a few times, and one of the places we'd go to was Three Valleys in, I don't know if that's France or I think it's France,
Okay.
but Three Valleys, beautiful, beautiful, oh, gorgeous place. Pretty big hills, and it's kind of like Vermont skiing where there's also a lot of ice. But so you're going down these, and I thought I was going pretty fast. I mean, I was going kind of scary fast for me.
Great.
And I've got this GoPro, plop, right on my head. Looking like an idiot, or looking like I'm better than I am. And so I'm recording as I go down these slopes, fast, 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 fast.
Right.
And then I get home and I watch the video. God, I couldn't be more boring because it looks like you're going dead slow.
Right. Yeah. It's
It's
kind of able to.
awful.
You're a bit taller, right? So
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
says, "Ooh, I'm slowly floating down the hill," is what it looked like. And so I
Yeah.
knew that. So I knew
Right.
that going down these rapids, I mean, in fact, I looked at some of the footage already. It's like, oh, boom, 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 going down some bumps on the river, but that's it.
Yeah.
And
That's
yet I remember.
God. Yeah, yeah. It's totally. It feel that I think they do it so that like if you're on a mountain bike or what have you, it makes it look more smooth and doesn't give you motion
Yeah.
sickness like that. But at the same time, when you remove that sort of jerky motion,
Yeah.
it removes some of the excitement from the
Excitement.
experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to turn it off or what have you,
Yeah,
but
you can. In fact, a lot of the times I did turn off the, if I was wandering around the campsite, I would turn those features on.
right.
But in the boat, I would often turn them off, except if I'm doing like I have this stick that
Mhm.
goes above, and as I turn that around, so I get the full view all the way around,
Yes.
I get that uh, vibration reduction, but for going down the rapids, I turn that off, and yet it's still, eh,
I think so we bought a GoPro and used a little bit, but didn't use it too much. One of the things that I really liked was that hyperlapse feature was super handy. But it's not. It doesn't necessarily give you the excitement, but it can kind of explain a story in a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
Instead of having me having to go in there and pick little clips that are exciting and move them together, because I'm not great at video editing. I just don't have the patience for it. I feel like that kind of helped. The other thing was we found a little strap that went on just on your pack, and it felt like the angle going from the head just a little bit lower seemed to be more interesting. I don't know if
I had brought that to the Grand Canyon, but I forgot to bring it with me to the Salmon River, and that would have been really good to have, because there was one point where, on this trip they also had a bunch of the three of the kind of inflatable kayaks, and so it's not so violent that you're going to go down rapids in one of these kayaks and the kayak's going to explode, but still, it's going down in this small boat. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And I managed to flip in the middle of one of these rapids.
Wow.
And I went under for, a good, few seconds, come out choking because I've taken in water. And then just trying to hold on to the kayak while trying to remember to get my feet up, because even in this river, you got to get your feet up. If your feet stay down, they might get lodged under a rock and then pull you under, and then you're dead. So get your feet up. And I'm feeling my feet almost running on the bottom of this. And this is bad. I got to get my feet up. And it would have been really great to have a camera that's always on rather than on this stick that, luckily, before I got into that little kayak, I had a belt on, and I kind of latched it to my belt.
Smart.
Otherwise, GoPro would have been lost on day 2. I've
learned that technique. When you're underwater, there's something you can do with your paddles to flip you over, and I've succeeded in doing this once. I've taken kayak training, and it's such a hard maneuver that I always end up just getting out of the kayak.
And this is this inflatable thing, and there is no cover. There's nothing holding you in. So as soon as you
you're
turn over a little bit, you're ejected.
Yeah.
So
exciting times.
The whole time the kayak stayed upright. It went down the rapids upright, no problem. It was the heavy body on top of the kayak that flew into the water.
Yeah, your center of gravity is really weird in a kayak, especially for someone taller like you. It's really difficult. I'm shorter. I'm 5'8" kind of thing. It's easier for me to sort of hunker down, but still, kayaks are interesting.
Yeah,
I kind of miss it though.
Yeah.
So you got up to a whole bunch of exciting stuff. I'm over here talking about dad shoes. I will say, having just received my 3rd vertical grip this year, I wanted to ask you sort of about maybe the kind of the accessorizing of cameras or the accessorizing of gear. And we're talking a little bit about the GoPro stuff, but so I've got a whole bunch of different GoPro attachments, because I feel like what I really like about photography and videography is just accessorizing things. Do you have that same problem where you're not flip through the catalog, but you look at the list of accessories I could use this for that and this for that, and you go out and you pick up the little things, and soon enough you've doubled the cost of the thing that you've purchased.
Oh yeah. Well, it doesn't help that this is each time I've gotten a GoPro has been for a specific thing. So I have the original GoPro, and it still works. I have it somewhere around here, but it's really clunky. It's not even. You needed a case to make it waterproof.
Right.
And then I had the GoPro 6, I think, Hero 6. That was for Grand Canyon, and for this trip, I took the Hero 10, which I just bought for the trip. And of course, I couldn't find the stick that I had, the selfie stick thing, and so I had to buy another one of those. I ended up buying the exact same one because it worked out really well. And but then I also ended up getting a. I'm looking for my desk is a mess. But I ended up getting a quick
It's great.
release, a different
Yeah.
quick release system so that I can easily get it on and off, but it stays
Right.
put if it's needed. Who's it from? The Fast Claw from Ulanzi.
Ooh.
And but before I relied on just Arca Swiss mounts, which I already had for everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Um, and but and with Arca Swiss, because it's the standard mount, there was a backpack attachment and all sorts of other things that worked really well. But I guess because I've got so many, especially for the Grand Canyon trip, because I mean, I already had that backpack thing because I use it for my regular camera, for my
Yeah.
Lumix camera. So I was able to take advantage of that. I mean, I guess over the years I've just collected a lot of stuff. I mean, I've got whole bins filled
Oh,
with just all the different screws. Oh, did we lose each other?
I am here.
Oh, there we go.
Was that me? Was
Yeah,
that you?
so
Oh,
I don't know.
it happens.
But yeah, I've got all these bins filled with screws of different attachment types and different clamps, um, and some of which are waterproof or at least something you would be okay with throwing in on a sandy beach, and others that you wouldn't. So, and yeah, I got a few more. So yeah,
I'm
I
so
have the same problem. I've got so many gadgets.
Yeah, it's awful, and I'm kind of in the midst of moving from Nikon to Sony. I held out for a
Yeah,
long time on the mirrorless path, but that eye
yeah,
autofocus, specifically the animal eye autofocus, which is terrible to say, but like honestly, I take a lot of photos of my dog.
yeah,
Uh, it just has me grabbing new lenses and new
yeah,
cameras and
yeah,
batteries, filters. For some reason,
yeah,
the filter sizes are bigger for some of the new lenses,
yeah,
which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, as well as
yeah,
smaller for some of the new lenses, which kind of does. But
yeah,
it kind of, when I look at the amount spent, it's a lot, and it feels
yeah,
like I don't want to say that these companies are doing this on purpose. Like I understand that there's that pace of innovation, and there's
yeah,
benefits to mirrorless and things like that, but it does feel like to switch systems, even over the course of like 2.5 years, which is kind of what I'm doing.
yeah,
It's a lot, and
yeah,
I generally shoot the same focal length for most things. Like for video, it's like 24 to 35
right,
kind of thing, and then for portraits, it might be, I don't know, 70 to 105 kind of thing.
right,
Is really all I use. But of
yeah,
course, you end up grabbing a zoom because, like, what if I just want to bring one lens and it
right,
maybe
yeah,
a prime in the middle? Like, what if I want
yep,
like a lens for everything, and like I need a
yeah,
smaller lens for travel, and just it increases and increees. And
yep,
yeah, I really, I think it's called like gear acquisition syndrome, or
yeah,
gas.
yeah,
Really get careful with the gas.
yeah, yeah. I definitely. I mean, it was helpful for me to migrate. I sold all my Nikon gear, you
Okay.
know, 10 years ago. I think when around the
Oh,
time that I guess I was still in Amsterdam.
okay.
And one nice thing about all the Nikon gear, it retained its value. In fact, some of the
Yeah.
lenses went up in value.
Right.
I was able to. I remember getting an 80 to 200 f2.8 lens, probably about 30 years ago, 25 years ago. I sold it 10 years ago for 50% over what I paid.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I had the same thing with the Nikon, what was it, 12 to 24,
Oh, it's
2
a great one.
point something. I mean,
Yeah.
the front of the lens is, like
Can't even put a
6 or
filter.
8 inches across.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was, I don't know, I paid $2,500 for that, or $2,000, somewhere in there.
That's cheap.
And I think I sold it for like $3,000 or 3,000 euros.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those lenses are amazing, and I guess people use them for video and what have you. And
Yeah.
I've got Nikon Glass, and I'm debating getting rid
Yeah.
of it. I started shooting some old Nikon film cameras that I have,
Uh
which is yet another way to sink cash into stuff. Is like buying
huh.
film and developing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not cheap. And then of course I tried some Polaroid stuff out as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the main thing I need to do is just sit down and shoot with the cameras that I have, as opposed to like grabbing stuff. But that's hard. But I have been using Studio. It's good.
Yeah. Well, switching to the Lumix system was nice. The Micro Four Thirds was nice because all the lenses are a lot cheaper. And for the most part, yes, I mean, if you're gonna, for the most part, for most things, the photos I was getting were as good and sometimes better because I was less tired carrying this equipment around.
Yeah. Also, if it's smaller, you're going to have it on hand.
Smaller,
yeah. That's what I'm noticing, is that I can carry the camera around all day without having shoulder pain or anything. That it feels like it's a good 10 pounds easy.
Yeah.
Depending on the lens I get on there, maybe 15.
Right.
Yeah, that 80 to.
I mean, I used to
is really big. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to have to. I kept trying new camera bags. Getting all these, like all the bags from Think Tank Photo, because I was hoping one of them is going to. I remember one of them was this like big fanny pack, that kind of bag, the backpack that fits, as a belt, but it's also got a shoulder strap to handle the extra weight, and that was great. But it's still this, along with the, I can't remember what it was, a D800 was that a camera, and with the big, not a motor drive, because that's not the thing, but the battery pack. Yeah.
In fact, I've got one that I'm trying to sell on Facebook Marketplace, for example. No one's interested in this stuff anymore. No one wants a DSLR that weighs 8 pounds and takes like AA batteries. Like, absolutely not. And I'm still a huge fan of AA batteries. They just work everywhere. But in terms of size and weight, they just don't. It's not the same anymore. Things are changing. Where do you land on this whole battery debate? Would you rather have like a smaller battery built into the device that is maybe or maybe not user replaceable, or like a larger device that takes batteries that you can get everywhere but is a lot heavier as a result?
I mean, one of the reasons I still carry my QC5 or QC15 Bose headphones, even though the ear pad, I've had to replace the ear pads twice, and the pad that goes up here is like completely disintegrated, and I think you just see the metal pretty much, is because it takes one AAA battery, and that's amazing, rather than a rechargeable battery that is going to die halfway on a flight to Hong Kong. Not that I fly to Hong Kong anymore, but so I prefer replaceable batteries over rechargeables, unless that rechargeable is I can replace with another battery that maybe I bring 3.
I'm totally with you, because I can bring 2 more AAAs if I have to.
Yeah. Like on this trip on the river, I took the GoPro, and then I took 3 batteries. Now there's like a regular battery you can get, and another battery that's the same size, but it's got more juice in it. So I got 2 of those and one of the regular battery that came with the camera, along with the dual charger, and I took two or three USB batteries, 30,000 milliamp hour batteries.
Beefy.
And on the Grand Canyon trip, I had to charge, I think I took 5 batteries with me. I had to charge all 5 of them every single night. And I went through the power of probably 2 of those 30,000 milliamp hour batteries. This time around, I didn't need to change the battery at all. I only needed to take one battery, the battery that came with the camera. That would have been fine. And so I only needed to charge that really I think I did it I might have done it every night or every other night. And so they're far more battery efficient. And so that's good, but I'm so glad I had an extra battery I could slip in.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I've also noticed that, like, even just moving from, I think it's the A7R2 that I've got, which is
Mm-hmm.
one right now, and the A7R4, they've changed battery technology. And of
Mm,
course, as a curmudgeon, I was like, why would you need? I've got all these
yeah.
spares. Why would you need to change
Yeah.
it? But they last a lot longer. The newer battery
Yeah.
tech is quite a bit better and lighter. So like
Yeah.
instead of having 3 batteries for the A7R, I can get away with one in the A7R4, which,
Mm,
again, this kind of like on the Nikon with 8 AAAs, I might be able to get,
right.
I think, 1,000 shots. And
Yeah.
this is me kind of, looking at the LCD and stuff like that, like not being
Right.
smart about it. But I shoot the same way on the Sony. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm not saying I'm converted, but I can kind of
Yeah.
understand, yes, battery
Yeah.
technology has gotten better,
Yep.
maybe worthwhile looking at. What I think I'm maybe more interested in is like those battery packs that you're talking about that take double A's. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I can add those to a battery pack and then charge other things with
Yeah.
them. I think that kind of makes sense. Like if I want the bulky stuff, I can have that if I want to.
Yeah.
But I'm curious.
I
So
mean,
how did? Yeah, go
on
ahead.
trips that I've taken a lot of photos, like when I went to Angkor Wat in Cambodia,
Right.
I was taking like 3,000 photos a day
Of course.
because it's Angkor Wat. It's amazing how often am I going to show up here?
Right.
And I was taking I was there for 3.5 days. I took about 10,000 photos. Probably 9,500 of them I can probably delete because they're horrible. But
How it works.
there
Yeah.
were I did take a lot of photos. And yeah, I needed to change the battery a lot.
Yeah. And just to drill in on that a little bit, do you feel like your keep to get rid of ratio is improving or getting worse? Because I feel like as I get older, I'm like hovering around 1% now. If I shoot 9,000 or 10,000 photos, I might get 100. Might like that I
Yeah,
really like that I'll print,
yeah,
but like honestly,
yeah. I mean, I'd say it's probably a ratio somewhere like that. I mean, I've never deleted a photo, but
I'm just keep them anyway.
I have every photo I've ever taken.
Same.
So all, I don't know, 150,000 frames or so on in my Lightroom catalog, plus a lot of negatives and slides.
Yep.
But yeah, there's definitely because I guess it depends. I mean, it depends on the camera. For a 35 millimeter or micro four thirds, or any sort of smaller, I mean, where it's, I mean, 35 millimeter, you're taking 36 images, or I had the Olympus OM2, and I had the bulk camera back, so that allowed for 150 frames,
Yeah.
and which is awesome.
Yeah.
But with that, you could take pictures quickly, and I mean, I would go through perhaps 10 rolls in a day. It was not a big deal. Luckily, I worked at a camera shop, so I could
Right.
make
I
that
know.
easier. And I was loading my own film, and buying film in bulk and loading it in my own cartridges. But then there's other cameras where they're bigger. Taking photos with a 4x5 camera, where the negative is 4 inches by 5 inches, and
Yes.
you've got maybe 5 of the cartridges or cassettes, and there's a piece of film on each side, and so now
Right.
you've got 10 images,
Yes.
you can take on this trip, and the camera is heavy, and the tripod is heavier,
Yes.
and you're carrying all this stuff, and I remember taking a hiking on the Washington coast to I think it was First Beach, and you see Strawberry Falls from there, and taking these pictures from the beach. I took 3 or 4 from that beach, and the photos were spectacular. Every single one of them was amazing,
Right.
because every single one of those exposures took 30 minutes to set up,
Right.
and then a 2-minute exposure, and then 30 minutes to tear down, and then move and look for, that it's going to take a while to take that photo. So you scope around and figure out, well, okay, if I take it here, oh, that's going to have this thing in the foreground, or nothing in the foreground. And
Right.
it's kind of useful to, there's the rule of thirds. It's not just thirds, this way and this way, but also thirds kind of going this way, so So have something in the foreground, something in the middle, and something way in the background so that you see the depth. And having all those things means you're moving around looking for driftwood on the beach to have in the foreground, so you've got some depth to the photo. And and so I found with all that thought involved, every single one of those photos was amazing.
This is why I love this chat, because I was literally going to talk about 4x5 and 8x10. So right to it for me. But I feel like what you're trying to say, or maybe this is what it's still down, is like you're more deliberate about the shot.
Yeah.
And because you're more deliberate, and some of this is like the subject matter that you're shooting as well. It's not like a kid or your pet or what have you. But because you're more deliberate, you think about it more. And I don't know if you become emotionally attached to it, but you're thinking about the shot. And what I noticed recently, I was shooting with a friend, Merlin, or Merlin DB on Twitter is his name, but he was shooting 8x10. I got to set up an 8x10 camera with him, which was amazing. It was a Cambo, it was all on rails, all of the motion, front and back.
Yeah.
But the amount of time to set up the camera, I think it took us about an hour. And you're right about the tripod. We didn't realize, like, hey, an 8x10 needs a beefy tripod and a beefy head. It was really heavy.
Yeah.
On top of all of this, the setting up the shot, so you put in like your ground glass to focus, and then you put in your Polaroid or your film.
Yeah.
And then you have to cog the shutter. It takes a while. And when there's a subject in front of the camera, they don't realize like this is a 4-minute process. Just like we're going to focus on you, but you actually need to stay and I'm saying the subject. But like I was the subject for one of these. And like, I don't know if it's ADHD or what, but like I could not sit still for 4 It's a long time. Yeah. And we took a shot of a child, like a friend's kid came over as we were testing, because some of this Polaroid stuff is like it's old, it's expired, that kind of stuff. You don't know what's good, what's bad, that kind of thing. We were doing an event at like a mural festival kind of thing at the studio that he lets me shoot at. At any rate, I did notice, like he said his keeper percentage is about 10%. And I thought there's no way. 10% is so high. You're full of yourself kind of thing. And then I realized, actually, when you're really deliberate about what you're shooting and being intentional about what you're trying to shoot. And I'm glad you said foreground, middle ground, and background, because that's actually a big part of it. Setting up the whole shot and the whole scene, like a portrait's one thing, but when you're thinking about a field camera, being out there taking a shot of a river kind of thing, and listen, we're not Ansel Adams or anything like that, but thinking about the actual frame and the negative and the process and thinking about what's in there.
Well, you've gotten the books.
Oh, I've read a couple of them, It's like there's a lot more to it, and I feel like at least with the iPhone, I just shoot and pick the keepers later kind of thing. With live photos, I'll make a keyframe or what have you. Same thing with the digital, I'll just shoot a lot. And then when I'm going back to 35 millimeter, I notice like, hey, there's scarcity involved. I have to think about this. What I feel like I need, where I'm getting to at this point, I swear there is a point. It's like I need a 1 gigabyte card or something like that. That's what I need to be able to like. And say like you get 30 frames, not 1,000, not 20,000. You get 30 frames. Be deliberate about what you shoot. So what I've been doing now is setting my, I guess, the amount of time that I shoot with somebody. So if you come to me for a portrait session kind of thing, what I've noticed is that I can do like one look in 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes, I'll be able to give you at least one good shot of like whatever you're wearing, whatever that look is. I've been putting it to the test. What I've noticed, unfortunately, is that my brain is like, hey, you get 30 minutes, shoot as much as you can. Like 300 shots in 30 minutes, which is like, you might as well just be taking video at this point in time. Like this is not what you got to do. I need to limit myself. That I have noticed.
And if you can know the pre-scout, if you're going to a different location, using tools like photographers' ephemeris to see where is the sun going to be, so you can already, even without having ever seen the place, know where do I need to stand to get, and what time do I need to get there to get this really cool.
When does the sun set? I'm shooting available light. I'm down like a midtown Manhattan. When is the light going to hit the studio? What does it look like? Do I need to go for it? Absolutely need to scout. I love that you got there, because it's a lot of it is, especially with available light, is like reading the light. Or do I need to do a test shoot with this lighting setup prior to the real shoot for like I don't do a lot of paid work, but for like a paid headshot or
Yeah.
something like that, let me get a test subject in, that kind of thing. And I found when I do that pre-work, a lot of it's not even photography. It's like, what kind of props am I going to use?
Yeah.
What's the angle that I'm going to put on this? And I don't mean camera angle, but like what kind of spin will I add to this to make it more interesting? I feel like that pre-work, and I've done a lot of post work in Photoshop and stuff like that, but that pre-work is maybe more important than the shoot. And then like the shoot is more important. So getting it right in camera is more important than the Photoshop. And then what I found on the back end too is like that communication between you and the subject. And maybe it's marketing or like when you publish, that kind of thing, like the timing is more important for like the upfront work and then like the publishing work. Sorry, I'm losing my frame here, but those two ends are way more important than I used to think they are. And I'm just learning to start to think and be intentional about what I'm setting up.
And the same thing can be said for doing a video. The more of that work that's done up front, the better. Maybe I don't know about better, but the easier it's going to be, and the higher chances of success that you're going to have. You know, if I just wing it for a video, and I know I want to have like a 3-minute video about, I don't know, MongoDB. I don't know what I'm not going to do one on that, but I would, you know, just kind of like, oh, I could just talk about, here's the things, there's all these like ums and ahs that I have to get rid of. And then, of course, I'm editing a whole bunch of stuff. I might record
you hate
2 hours worth of content, and now I've got to spend hours and hours and hours culling that down to something that anybody would actually want to watch. Whereas if I think ahead of time, I create a script, I talk to the teleprompter that's right in front of me, and now I can get, you know, I might have to do 2 takes or restart over, you know, when I say something the wrong way, but there's 3 or 4 edits in the middle that I have to get rid of, and I can be done, you know, start it, because I've got everything all set up. I can go from script is written to video is done in a matter of an hour or 2, as long as I think ahead, write a script, really know what I'm going to be doing, and go with the plan.
Yeah, and obviously that's what we do on this stream every week. We rehearse everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We've this is the 4th time we've had this conversation. It's pretty close to perfect.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to an hour. I wanted to ask you if there's any like checkouts or things that you want people to have a look at, or it's been a month, so I'm sure you've come across something.
I have. You know, I'm using a new browser.
Oh, a new browser! Holy.
Yeah, I'm using Arc. Have you used Arc?
I have not. ARC.
By ARC. By the browser company is the company name.
Interesting. And what's the catch?
It's just it's a little bit you know, one of their big things is tabs are on the side versus on top.
I can see the benefit.
They do it really well. You know, there have been lots of tools. You can do this in Chrome and other other browsers.
I remember Opera used to do it. Yeah.
But there's also the idea of workspaces, and you know, so I have a workspace for my work account, for my infra account, but then a separate workspace for my M at technevangelist.com and technevangelist@gmail.com and Matt at tmlw.io, my different like emails, and it keeps the login, like the Google login or the Outlook login, they keep it separate in each of the workspaces so that user, and it just works a whole lot better than, I always find myself using Chrome. I'm in the wrong profile, and now I've got 5 windows open, one for each profile, and Arc is great.
That is awesome. I've only got one, so I ended up, because my brain was kind of mush, I ended up watching quite a bit of TV. Most of it was pretty bad, but I watched a series on Apple TV called Blackbird. I won't spoil it.
But I just finished that.
And I'm not a big fan of these disturbing kind of shows, but Wow, it's very short,
Yeah.
which is nice, because I wouldn't want any more of that kind of content.
Yeah.
But it sort of hit me like a freight train, and I would highly recommend watching it. If you got kids, obviously disclaimer, it's triggering. We were talking about that stuff earlier, but it was very well done. I think just on the cinematography and like acting level, Ray Liotta, I mean, come on, it was so good. But that's my checkout. Definitely, if you've got like an Apple device, chances are you get free access to Apple TV. Definitely worth a look.
Yeah. Another one that I just started watching. I don't know. The first episode looks promising. It's one that my mother said, "You really need to watch this. This is really good." And it's got a terrible title. The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem, I think it's Beauty Queen of Jerusalem.
Okay.
Takes place, starts at the end of Ottoman Empire, and then I think most of it is right around World War II, I think. But a lot of it's happening in Jerusalem so far, and it's interesting to see, all the different parties that are in Jerusalem, how they are working together and living together, and or not trusting each other because they're the wrong version of Judaism, and it's fascinating. So my mother was really into it, and I'm kind of getting sucked in too.
Fantastic. All right, we get a few checkouts there. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We can probably call it there. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Always
I think so. Thank you.
Glad we rehearsed.
Yeah. And next week we're gonna do it right at 2:00. Oh, but first we're gonna sync up sometime this week to go to make sure our ATEMs can talk to each other.
Can do.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Take it easy.
You got any more trips planned where we're gonna not be able to meet?
Actually, I think I am in Sydney next week. I just realized.
What? You're going for what, reInvent or AWS thing?
I'm there now, right? So it's not too bad. It's a summit. Yeah, the time zone's not too bad. Nice. Yeah, so it's let's see. Yeah, it's 8:30 a.m. I could probably swing a 6:30 a.m. wake up.
Okay.
All right, sir.
See how the Wi-Fi in the hotel is.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta run.
Alrighty. Okay. Right. Bye,
folks.